Good morning and welcome to Talking Point here on WESN, the content capital. My name is Keaton Shaw. Very pleased to be here once more to continue the discussions. And this morning, we're focusing, of course, on government issues, especially in relation to debates. That's the overarching conversation this morning in relation to debates, and you'll understand how as we get into the topics. But before I do the honors of introducing my co-host, as well as our guest commentator for this morning, I'd like to quickly mention that the 2008, as you would have seen as the first headline in the news, the 2008 Olympic men's 4x100-meter relay team received their gold medals at the International Olympic Committee's headquarters in Switzerland early yesterday. The team was led by Keston Bledman, Emmanuel Callender, Mark Burns, and Aaron Armstrong, as well as Richard Torpedo Thompson. So congratulations to the team. Trinidad and Tobago are the recipients of yet another gold medal, and that is cause for celebration. So, as I introduce my co-host and colleague, Mr. Sean Michael Small, I pose a question to him. Public holiday tomorrow?
I mean that actually would be inconvenient if it was so last minute. I'm sure quite a lot of the kids, I don't think school is relatively over, half over exams are done or something like that.
School officially ends on Friday.
Right, okay, yeah. So and I think I'm feeling it with regards to the traffic this week. That is probably what it is. I was so confused. You know, the protest was only one day. What's going on? And thankfully, okay, school is coming to a close and we're back to non-school traffic, which unfortunately, it's not worth it to say, well, kids should just stay at online classes because we saw the result of that.
Well, the result of which is that students who actually scored 50% and lower in their essay exams will now have remedial classes for the next 2 months. The Ministry of Education allocating $10 million towards that initiative. But is it enough? That is the question being posed by TUTA as well as the National Parent Teachers Association.
Oh, that's funny that TUTA poses the question.
Well, Anyway, before we get too caught up in that, let me introduce our guest commentator for this morning. As I always introduce her, she is the former Minister of Finance. She's attorney at law intellect. And as I like to put it, the lady with the golden smile, Miss Karen Nunes Teixeira. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning, Keaton. Good morning, Sean, and good morning to your listeners. Happy Wednesday. Yes, we're going through a bit of turmoil, as to be expected in these very trying times, both locally and regionally and globally. And of course, there's so much to talk about this morning.
Indeed, a lot to talk about this morning. Karen, we're very fortunate that you're able to join us once more, and we're grateful for that. So let's get straight into the discussions this morning. Mr. Sean Michael Small, the Attorney General, is once more at the forefront of the conversation in relation to what we're quoting as a double jeopardy. Now, there's multiple jeopardies in relation to what is being dubbed as the bail amendment extension of duration bill, which seeks to extend for certain offences until August 5th, 2023. The double jeopardy, well, they're multiple. First of all, when he was Law Association President in 2016, he opposed the bill, but now as Attorney General, he's actually trying to persuade the House to pass the bill. The other aspect is in relation to constitutional rights. And finally, should the judiciary make that decision rather than it be coming from the government? So that's a lot to discuss. Mr. Sean Michael Small, I believe yesterday you actually viewed the Attorney General's presentation in Parliament.
Yes, and we haven't necessarily addressed it, but once again, the opposition gets up and leaves before he's going to speak. I agree with Minister of Health, Sir Nsial, saying they should just do so quietly, but they're well within their rights to do so. So the Attorney General came, and he's another presentation. And if the clip doesn't have it, I'll just say that the work or the groundwork for this amendment or these amendments was done by the previous AG, or at least it was begun, and for the most part, a lot of the work was done from the previous AG and his time there. So this is just basically finishing that effort by that study that they found to try or propose these amendments. And the amendments, well, there's a question. Do we really want to trust an office that is seemingly stuck in controversy? So let's get a clip of the AG's some of the highlights of the AG's presentation yesterday.
The bill, Madam Speaker, seeks to amend the Interpretation Act, the Supreme Court of Judicature Act, and the Criminal Procedure Act in relation to the relaxation of the rule against double jeopardy. The bill seeks to amend the Offences Against the Persons Act in relation to the abolition of the year and a day rule. And the House of Lords held that a person could not be tried for the same or substantially the same offense unless the prosecution was able to prove the existence of special circumstances warranting a second prosecution, as confirmed by the Queen and Beattie 1998 Queen's Bench 356, which stated that for the doctrine to apply, it must be for the same offense in both fact and law, and no man should be punished twice for an offense arising out of the same or substantially the same set of facts. The rule against double jeopardy persists today mainly because it continues to provide a degree of finality and conclusiveness to defendants, victims, witnesses, and persons involved in criminal proceedings. Over time, however, Madam Speaker, strict application of the rule has led to situations where guilty persons have been able to escape the arm of justice. It is not an enshrined right as a fundamental right in sections 4 and 5 of the Constitution, but have been recognized at common law and at statute for centuries. The rule will not, therefore, automatically gain constitutional protection simply because it existed prior to the enactment of the Constitution. The rule, therefore, does not form part of the entrenched fundamental human rights set out in sections 4 and 5 of the Constitution, namely the right to a fair trial, due process, or protection of the law, and therefore, an abolition or variation of the rule will not infringe upon any of those entrenched rights, and thus a special majority of this House will not be required. It must be noted, Madam Speaker, that other common law jurisdictions, including notably the United Kingdom, Australia, New South Wales, Queensland, South Australia, and Victoria, and New Zealand, have relaxed the rule to allow a retrial of an acquitted person in 2 exceptional circumstances. That is to say, where there is new and compelling evidence or where there was a tainted acquittal.
So that is the AG more or less giving us some explanation as to, one, why something that seems to be so important will still be allowed to be passed by a simple majority, which seems to be the only way the government does business these days. And I think the other thing with regards to his presentation, I have to admit, I'm not necessarily looking to say definitely, okay, he's a bad guy or what have you. But given how the situation went down in the courts in Miami and how it's being played out, I do have a hard time, just giving him the benefit of the doubt and the trust that the office deserves and the importance of the legislation probably requires. And you said it yourself, with regards to the bail bill, when he's in the Law Association, he's against it. Now he's the AG, he's for it. So I do have to now question, you couldn't even remember what your role was in a high-profile case that you were already a senior counsel. Now you are on record flip-flopping. To what extent could I trust this AG with regards to writing a suitable piece of legislation that's saying we're going to have exemptions in double jeopardy? That, to me, as a layman, seems like a big deal. I don't know if Karen has a more legal, technical perspective that might say, well, sure, no, there's nothing to worry about.
By the way, I'd just like to point out the irony in my co-saying a more technical aspect when it comes to the law. Go ahead, Karen.
Oh, no. I think he's wearing a different hat and he has a responsibility to carry out his duties as such. So I don't see to me, it does not seem to be an issue with regard to him as president of the Law Association representing the views of the Law Association, which may not necessarily have been his views, but be the views of the association of which he was the president. And now he's in a new role, and that of the Attorney General of Trinidad and Tobago, and he has a responsibility to pass laws which he believes are in the interest of the country. So I don't see, that's not flip-flopping at all. In my view, that is doing a job. The problem, of course, with him is, should he be there in the first place? And I think that is the real issue. I think that is where the issue for many people arises, that they're doing as though there's no issue with him. There is a big issue with him. And I don't know if you recall the Prime Minister, while he flew through Trinidad on his way to Suriname after being out of the country for nearly a month, he called the disqualification in Miami as a recusal. And that was simply not true. I mean, and I know Boris Johnson is in trouble for not telling the truth. I know. Yeah, you know Boris Johnson.
Boris
they're talking
Johnson
about. Yeah, even Boris Johnson right now lost two of his chancellor and his minister of health.
He lost a third member. He lost a third member of the executive yesterday as well. So he's lost three senior
There you go.
officials.
And then people ask, he did such a good job with Brexit. He did such a good job with COVID. But what's he being for not telling the truth, for not being honest with the people of England? So don't underestimate the importance of the opposition walking out, because the opposition is walking out because they say, should that man who's standing there in front of them be the Attorney General when he has gone on an affidavit and spoken the untruth? And then they got the records to show that when he said he was sitting waiting for a call all day in Europe in a hotel, the records show that could not have been the truth either. And when the Prime Minister, who is the one who appoints and disappoints, is asked a very reasonable question about due diligence, he gets buffed from here to thy kingdom come and will not answer the question. That's what we have in Trinidad. Look what's going on right now in England. So I'm sorry, that's the first point. The second point is with regard to what you're saying, is that whether in fact, which is the two main points he would have taken, and in fact, Suraj, which was just decided from the Privy Council, and which in fact adopted the Caribbean Court of Justice approach on the same issue with regard to the effect of constitutional safeguards, and saying merely because you have the constitutional safeguards are not absolute, they are both proportional to the, and also the objective for which it seeks to protect. So that Suraj, which dealt with both Alicia Guesthouse having a party with more than 10 people, and Maharaj, which dealt with religious gathering of more than the prescribed amount, even though the court ended up saying the directions were not clear, what you're getting out of that, and it comes to what we're dealing with right now, is I'm wondering whether the Attorney General can be said to be acting as Sean has said, really take upon himself the rule of the judicial discretion, the judiciary's right to determine how much bail should be granted, and whether some legal provision can deprive the judiciary, which is a separation of powers, from its judicial authority. So it's a judicial issue. It is a constitutional issue, which he said it was neither. And he said it was not constitutional because if it were constitutional, it means that he needs a 3/5 majority. So in my mind, I think he argued that constitutional point in order to get a simple majority to pass that legislation. And with regard to the other point that I made, I think it is, I'm sure when he was law association president, I'm sure he also felt very strongly that it was not keeping what is the hallmark of our Westminster democracy, separation of the arms of our democracy. So on those 2 points, and regards to the opposition walking out, the opposition are walking out very well. Opposition is walking out that he shouldn't be standing up there.
Well, I have quite a bit to comment on and comment on some of the points that Karen has raised. But what I'm going to do is that I'm going to give you, the viewer, a moment to digest everything that Karen has educated us on, and it'll allow you to formulate an opinion. When we return from the break, we'll give to you the question of the day, and then we will continue the discussions this morning. So stay tuned to Talking Point here on WESN, your content capital.
As I run through the day, there's one thing that I need to give me more smiles and motivation to lead, to make new memories and nutrition to grow. My Kiss Enriched brand, the best taste that I know. Fill your day with love, we deliver the best for you. All
and delivered nationwide. Kiss Enriched Bread.
Fill your day with love.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
In this season, we talk more about health, wellness, and everything in between. I am so excited to share with you everything about health and wellness so that you can design the life that you've always dreamed of. Join me here on What's Up Doc.
What's Up Doc? Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN Content Capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing now, Andre.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Paul?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back to Talking Point here on WESN, the Content Capital. Okay, so as we continue the conversations this morning, there are many things to comment on. First of all, I completely understand and I respect my co-host and colleagues' concerns over the AG's positioning. And that is exactly why the opposition walked out of Parliament yesterday. And you're absolutely right. There are many concerns over his suitability to now accurately and efficiently execute his role as the Attorney General, given the controversy surrounding him from his, and I'm not going to be like the Prime Minister here and, try to act as though I'm not aware. He wasn't recused from a Miami court. He was actually suspended from the proceedings. So let me put that forward. So I completely understand. The difficulty now is that in trying to analyze the situation, you look at him as Law Association President in 2016, actually opposing the bill. Then you look at him in his role as Attorney General, which in itself is controversial, now actually trying to advocate for the bill. He's actually trying to persuade Parliament. The difficulty is now, because of his two sides to the argument, he's actually been on both sides of the argument. Where does he stand personally? What is his opinion on the bill? And the unfortunate thing, the right thing, but the unfortunate thing is that he does not bring any personal beliefs to the debate or to the argument. So I'll have to agree with Karen on this aspect that he's just doing his job. However, in that way as well, it's a lot of controversy because of the issues surrounding his role and how he in himself has brought jeopardy to the office.
And I think you might want to say, well, a lawyer doesn't need to bring their personal beliefs into an argument. The problem is he's not just giving a strictly speaking legal justification. He's part of cabinet. He's presenting this for the government. He's going to try to use some persuasive language. But if you're just a representative who's talking about the views of other people, well, then your persuasive language doesn't really matter to us, right? Because it doesn't mean anything from you. So, and I think this goes back to Karen, where you're saying maybe the AG should not be a member of cabinet. Maybe it should and maybe the roles of the AG should be split because is he representing us when it comes to the final drafts of these bills or the will of the government? How could he do both at the same time?
That very much is an excellent point. because the office of the Attorney General is not to represent the government of Trinidad and Tobago, but the people of Trinidad and Tobago. That is what, and yes, he is appointed by the government, but you have to bear that in mind as well. So he is obviously the attorney representing Trinidad and Tobago in legal cases, and that's an excellent point. The other aspect that Karen and Sean commented on is in relation to the opposition, and whilst I agree that they have every right to walk out, I believe that the opposition needs to do it in they need to have a better manner in which they do it. This rowdy walking out of Parliament is rather unfortunate and doesn't speak very highly of their behaviour. Exactly, because I am not always in favour of the government. I'm not always in favour of the opposition. I'm saying the opposition has a right. They have a responsibility. Okay, walk out. But I have to agree with the Minister of Health here when he's stating, fine, go ahead, but please do so in a more respectful manner. I agree with that. And there should be no rowdy talk and whatnot. That being said, I'm also of the opinion that they should be debating these bills within Parliament rather than using their political platforms such as the UNC Monday Night Forum to debate such bills. I think that is what Parliament is there for. Whilst they have the opportunity to educate the public during their Monday Night Forums, I think that they should debate it within Parliament.
I think they leave one person in the room on the opposition bench to speak. To what extent he really is the representative to ensure that there is a debate, I can't say, but they do leave somebody on the bench. I've never seen it completely empty.
Which is personally probably why the government has actually now reverted to going to a simple majority rather than a special majority, because maybe they don't have any other choice. I have two more points to raise, but I'm going to give Karen the opportunity now. Karen?
Yeah, you're a frozen. The only person I'm saying, not that I have any objection to seeing you, Keaton, but your eyes have been closed looking directly at me for the last 5 minutes while the conversation has been going on. But I do want to take exception to the point that he's playing both sides. He's not playing both sides. He's one, as he was the president of the Law Association. He may not even agree with the Law Association's position, but if the Law Association's position is what it is, then he has a duty to represent to the best of his ability. That's the code of ethics that governs the professional act.
Very much so.
If he is the Attorney General is the advisor to the government and the protector of the people's interests. He has a dual function. It's not just one function. Mm-hmm. And now that cap he's not wearing that cap, he may very well might not even be agreeing with what he might be saying. Because I have seen there's something called collective responsibility. I have been in cabinet, and I'm sure other colleagues that were there at the time can remember there were instances where we did not agree with a decision. Personally, we did not personally agree with the decision. But the fact of the matter, it's not about you. It's about a cabinet collective responsibility, so that when the Attorney General stands there and takes his position, it is not for him to give his personal view. It's not his case. It is the country's case, and it is the cabinet who he's representing. So I do not think it would be proper for him to insert any of his own personal views, only if he wanted to give it more excitement. But I certainly think that he had a responsibility to show and to demonstrate the views of his government, of which he is a member of the cabinet. So I do not agree with the position that he is being two-sided and he's doing his job as he must under the code of ethics, and anyone else in his position would have to do that. The problem is, should he be there in the first place?
Well,
and
Karen,
the problem is just, let me just say this one thing.
Sure.
The problem is this: because of the lack of confidence and trust in him that has come out of that Miami case, and his continuing refusal to address the issues and basically not being fruitful, it means that when he talks, the impact of what he's saying on behalf of the government loses a lot of credibility because of that very fact.
Well, which is why the opposition has walked out.
I'm back to be frozen, huh? All I'm seeing is your eyes closed.
Well, I do apologize for that. We'll try and have our technical comrades work on that situation. But in relation to that is why the opposition walks out, because it discredits his arguments even more than what it already has in terms of the controversy he's brought to the office. But I agree with everything that you stated. It will be unjust for him to bring his personal opinions to these arguments. And that is why, whether or not he was Law Association president in 2016 and disagreed, or the Attorney General now, rightfully, he is doing the job, the duty and responsibility, regardless of the controversy, he is carrying out that role. So that is why I understand, and I've empathized with my co-host and colleague and his point, because I totally understand where you're coming from, and I see where the common man on the street will think the same thing. If I'm trying to be fair, however, I cannot actually disregard the fact that he is still Attorney General.
Right, and yes, it goes back to the question, because we saw in Britain, and these were the first resignations from the government, Boris Johnson's government. He lost one of his chief advisors a few months ago, or last year, I can't remember the specific date.
Well, yes, he resigned over controversy as well regarding COVID.
No, I'm talking about the policy in chief behind the scenes. She also resigned as well, and that was seen as a very bad sign. I think losing the minister, his health minister, and basically his finance minister, coming out of a pandemic recovery, that also is a very bad sign. And then there's also the whole demographics of the situation. But
I think, can I just say though, and I'll just say it very quickly, the reason why, and that is the key, because I listened to BBC for about 3 hours straight to see why did these people resign. With Javid, the Minister of Health, was very clear. He said in good conscience he cannot continue to be part of this government. So he was much clearer. But what it came down to, with everybody they interviewed, whether Tory or Labour or commentator, it was that the Prime Minister is a liar. And the Prime Minister's word cannot be trusted. And that is why,
Don't we have those questions
in him?
Don't we have those questions, Karen, with a couple of members at the very least in the current administration? It's not proven, but we have those questions. Those questions are serious enough. And then my final point would be to just say this. While we could, yes, talk about exemptions, right? New evidence might show up. But to some extent, do we have an issue with new evidence turning up because how we prosecute cases, is that really as good as it's supposed to be? I mean, at the end of the day, because it came up in the debate for the bail bill as well, I believe. I can't remember which one, but an opposition MP made the point that I think with regards to bail, we already have people on remand for so long, and then if we put any sort of extra exemptions with double jeopardy or with bail to allow them to be charged again, go back again, right? The court matters already take so long, and if we're not going to get it right, because in 15 years, you're going to find new evidence after 15 years, the average length of a trial of a criminal case in TNT is a decade, I think, plus. So if it takes that long for a trial's evidence to develop, where are you getting new DNA? Where are you getting new forensics?
And Sean, I cannot overstate. I really want to not overstate this, because we could apply this to Cummings, we could apply this to Reginald Amor. You know what the reason the Partygate was started the whole story going, but it was his minister of, he made him Minister of Housing, he was the Deputy Chief Whip at the time. And the issue wasn't that the Pickering or whatever his name is was unsoliciting sexual advances to men, unwarranted and unwelcome. It wasn't that, It was the fact that they said that the Prime Minister sent out 2 junior ministers to say that he never knew before this incident that was reported that Pickering was, whatever his name was doing what he was doing. And that's what brought him down. In other words, you did not know that Amor, you never knew before.
Yes.
You never knew about Cummings. You never knew about Marlene. You never knew any of those things. So the reason he is in trouble is not because this man was interfering with people unsolicited, It was that he lied. That is the Prime Minister, and sent 2 junior ministers to lie for him, to say that he never knew before. That is what this whole issue is about. Trust and confidence. Remember, that is the issue.
I have always said that I think foreign nations, first world natures, their politics were actually not so dissimilar to ours, but this is one area.
No, it's not.
This is one area that I think they do it at least a little bit better, and that is to know when it's time to say, okay, something went wrong here, I throw any towel on, at least with this chapter, right, to walk away. And usually politicians in TNT do not know when it's time to walk away.
Well, this is the thing. The politics in the first world may not be different that much to the third world, but the politicians certainly are, at least the caliber of the politicians, which is why the response on the part of governments may very much be better off when compared to third world nations. But that's a topic for another time. The two other points I want to make, the last point in relation to the year and a day rule, and Karen has explained that on the program before, a person cannot be convicted of homicide leading to death a year and a day after their actions would have led to that death. So they cannot be convicted of homicide. And that in itself, I believe, and it's a very controversial topic and a very controversial debate, especially when it comes to separation of powers and the government now having to produce legislation in order to relax those measures, relax those rights. The difficulty is that whilst the government is working to try and fix, for want of a better way of putting it, our judicial system, can they do that without disrupting the separation of powers? That is a very, very difficult conversation to have. I think that is what they're trying to do, but at the same time, it's very difficult without having to cross those lines, without those separations, without those borders.
And then you do have to ask, is the Chief Justice and all the other relevant stakeholders, Chief Magistrate, etc., to what extent will they be acting in good faith and cooperate? Or, I mean, acting in good faith does not necessarily mean cooperation. But again, how smooth, is everybody going to go on the same page in good faith to try and fix the system? Or is it really just, a dog and pony show and a hocus pocus? Because I guess you could argue a lot of this is the AG. Hey, look, we're doing something about crime. Look, we're doing something about crime, But really and truly, to what extent is this affecting the crime on the streets right now?
Well, finally, and that's a fair point. And finally, my point ties into our government and what we would have seen yesterday within the United Kingdom. And I'd like to put forward a question now. We have seen the Attorney General on 2 occasions defend what transpired in the Miami court. One from a newspaper print for the nation to read, and then a press conference of which, unfortunately, he mucked up. Let's just admit it. It was very, very unfortunate. And I expected a lot more and expected a lot better, but I suppose they say, high hopes lead to disappointment. Regardless of such, what if, and let me just add into this equation, the Prime Minister's press conference on Saturday before he left for Suriname, in which
we will touch on again,
to deny that the AG was suspended. It seems as though disqualified. He put forward he was aware for recusal. With that, do you think, this is not the question of the day, this is for debate, do you think that the Attorney General actually tendered his resignation, but the Prime Minister did not accept it?
Ooh, that's an interesting question.
What if that is the case?
I don't think so, though. I don't think so.
What if that is the case?
I don't think so. That's not the question of the day, but we have to go to break. So before we do, I will give you the question of the day. And this comes from my frustrations. In light of the fact that everything passed is a simple majority and the opposition opposes everything. We don't know, based on parliamentary debate, if a bill is good or if a bill is bad. So I have to ask, is parliamentary debate in TNT meaningless? Because we know what both sides are going to say. So that simple majority, yes. Opposition says no.
So there are 2 parts to that question, actually, because I forgot to inform my co-host, forgive me. The first question is, as he put forward, is parliamentary debate meaningless? The second part of that question is, do you think that the government has no other choice but to pass legislation via simple majority, simply because of what he pointed out?
Okay.
So those are the 2 parts of the question, and we'll have that for you to debate with us later on after the 9 o'clock news. But we now have to take a break, and when we return, we'll continue the conversations.
Ocho. 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 Ocho.
Organic Ocho candy. What's inside counts.
As I run through the day, there's one thing that I need to give me more smiles and motivation to lead, to make new memories and nutrition to grow. My Kiss Enriched bread, the best taste that I know. Fill your day with love, we live with the best for you. All across the nation to make your moments feel new. Fill your day with love, we bake the best bread for you. A taste of inspiration to make those dreams come true.
Baked fresh for you every day and delivered nationwide. Kiss Enriched Bread.
Fill your day with love.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fanzone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
The best birthday gifts are at thebesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices. Like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship McBean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
There's a taste in the air everywhere. Feel the vibe cause it's something to share. Smooth, rich and creamy, you'll find it right here. Makes you smile, relax a while, it's fun and good cheer. Ooh, enjoy every scoop. Ooh, every taste will get you hooked. We have flavors that you love, a combination special. Come along, enjoy your treats. This is Uncle Pete's.
Artist sale at Softbox Gallery. For 2 days only, a sale on paintings by artist Real Leasing. The public is invited to purchase original oils, acrylic, charcoal and watercolor paintings created between 2011 and 2021. Friday 8th July 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Saturday 9th July 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Softbox Gallery, number 9 Alcazar Street, Saint Clair. For more information, email realleasingartist@gmail.com or follow her on social media at Real Leasing Fine Art.
The Mary Immaculate Prayer Group and Friends presents its prayer breakfast on August 31st in aid of Monsignor Christian Pereira. The prayer breakfast begins from 9 a.m. at the Cathedral of Immaculate Conception. Cost is only $200. Come support the Cup of Gratitude in aid of Monsignor Pereira, August 31st.
Tickets are available at the parish office of the Cathedral of Immaculate Conception and the parish of Our Lady of Perpetual Help.
A reminder from WESN. We urge you to protect yourself and others from the spread of COVID-19. Stay safe by taking some simple precautions. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand rub. Maintain a safe distance from anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Wear a mask. Don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay at home. If you have a fever, cough, and difficulty breathing, seek medical attention. Following the above can help us all to help each other.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, the Prime Minister had a press conference and something important happened. We did not necessarily go into it specifically, and that is with regards to the end of the press conference where he got a little terse with one of the reporters. He got a little upset. Now, granted, he was answering questions with regards to the rumors that eventually were directed at him. There were rumors of a government minister whose foreign accounts were being looked into by American authorities, and eventually those rumors landed on his lap, and he was answering that. So he got a bit defensive even before this point. Now for time, we're going to have to go straight to the clip where he is basically refusing to answer questions from one of our journalistic colleagues. Let's take a look at this clip.
And Prime Minister, you made reference to a question that I would have sent you via WhatsApp.
I said that?
Yes.
You sent me a question about what?
On the due diligence aspect. So
you admit that?
Yes, I did.
So don't go any further.
So
I advise you, don't go any further.
I'll ask the question.
You know why? Let me tell you why, because I think your colleagues need to know. You are the gentleman who stood outside the Hall of Justice for hours waiting for me to come out of the court when I sued the Integrity Commission. And you waited and took a picture with the bars in front at Carnival time and had me coming out with the bars in front of me, and the headline then was, Rowley appears in court. Remember that? I who sued the Integrity Commission, I appear in court. When somebody appears in court, you know what that means? It means that they were taken to court for some criminal matter. That, go and check the archives in the Express, and you will find that there, and that was your doing. And you coming to ask me now about the what?
So, let me ask you a question.
I am not going to answer you.
So I don't have any personal grudge against
It is not personal. I am just pointing out the role that the media is playing when there's malice. And if you believe the nonsense that somebody put on social media about me and due diligence, while I am representing this country as the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago with dignity that you're not accustomed to, you're on your own with that. I am not going to go down that road with you. Because if there's another role you can play, you know. But you choose to play this role, and I will not go down there with you. If you know something otherwise, you print it without my comment. Is there any other question?
Sir, on March 16th...
Is there any other question from anybody else?
So on March 16th, you appointed Mr. Reginald Armour as the Attorney General.
Well, folks, the Prime Minister got testy, but it doesn't went there. He asked people, hey, go back in the Express and see where you put a picture of me behind bars saying I appeared in court. Well, I have to admit, this is courtesy of the opposition. I didn't get this photo, but we have the picture. We have the picture of the Express report. If we could put it up on the screen, and I will read it out for those who might not be watching TV right now or can't see, like our colleague Karen here. Rowley makes first court showing in land date matter. Right? And then at the picture, underneath the picture, they have the caption, Housing Minister Dr. Keith Rowley leaves the Hall of Justice yesterday. Land date challenge is the title for the photo. Yes, the photo shows him behind the bars of what I assume is a fence. I guess if the photographer had access to take the photo, you know, without the fence between him and then Housing Minister, he would have done so. So it's interesting. I do wonder to what extent did he purposefully misconstrue history? To what extent is it just his memory is bad and he's just holding a minor grudge despite the fact that he says this? It's not a grudge when there's malice in the media. Well, unfortunately, unfortunately, the receipts don't add up.
Well, let me just quickly say that I've criticized local media before for not being up to the standards that it should be, but I'm standing by my fellow colleague and journalist this morning. The reason being is simple. It is rather unfortunate that the Prime Minister has chosen to go down there. He made a decision, he chose to go on this road, and therefore it is now up to public perception. He may get some support, whilst others might chastise his behavior and attitude. He is a leader. This is an issue that took place 15 years ago. Since then, he became opposition leader, and then he became Prime Minister. And it is now unfortunate that he has to raise that issue again. But the reason being, in my opinion, if you looked at that video, is because the Prime Minister could not answer the question put forward by the Newsday journalists. Or the Prime Minister could answer the question, but he refused to because he did not do due diligence before appointing Reginald Amor as the Attorney General. So what the Prime Minister chose to do, instead of answering the question, was add to the culture of silence as put forward by Judy Raymond. He chose to chastise a media house. As a leader, it is wrong. It is unfortunate. Because at the end of the day, I'm wondering if the Prime Minister has ever stood up as opposition leader, as housing minister, as Prime Minister, any member of Parliament in any position, and use any newspaper articles or newspaper clippings in any of his debates or arguments. Because the moment that you come to chastise a journalist, he was holding a grudge clearly because he couldn't answer the question, and the Prime Minister does not want to seem, how do I put this in a very polite manner, uneducated or uneducated, or you know, I mean, that in itself showed when he called the disqualification or recusal. At the end of it all, Prime Minister, I am not surprised, I am not shocked, I am just disappointed once more. And yes, you have the authority to appoint and disappoint, and you certainly continue to disappoint. Karen, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this entire drama, melodrama put forward by the Prime Minister.
Well, number one, the classic deflection. Two, intimidation. And he does it all the time, and that is it's getting old now. You know, Prime Minister, your toolbox, you have to pull something out of that toolbox again, because you see that tool you're using all the time, it's not working. You're not fooling anyone. Everybody knows that you do not want to answer the question, because you know that if you had answered the question, you would have had to say, well, clearly I did not do due diligence, and therefore. So that is one thing. Secondly, you saying recusal. You very well know the difference between recusal. That happens in your cabinet. Doesn't your AG recuse himself 27 times? So you know what recusal means. It's a completely different thing from being disqualified, and you very well knew that. And that again is, in my view, is playing smart with foolishness, to be polite. And the last, and in relation to him bringing up the land deed, the Express did respond to him, and the Express said that one, the writer of an article is not the person who decides the headlines. In any case, the headlines were not what he said it was. And because you appear in court does not mean, so defendants and plaintiffs don't appear in court. I thought it's only the person that's accused appears in court. And the fourth point I want to make, because he keeps on bringing up the land deed, as if he were cleared of any wrongdoing. Not that he was done anything wrong, but the issue with land deed, I want it to be clear to the population. The issue with land deed, I think Ms. Rajnath Lee, who's now at the CCJ, heard the procedural point. The procedural point being that the issue of whether he had committed some wrongful offense by the alleged transfer of material from the I think a hospital and building in Tobago to his own site.
Yes.
That was never, ever heard. The issue is the procedure in which thing. But up to now, you have not been cleared, nor have you been cleared, or has the court cleared the issue of the substantive issue. So if you are so upset about land deed, why don't you go to court and clear your name and show that that what they have said about you in the DPP report was not true. And classic deflection, classic intimidation, and I want to make one last point too. You noticed when they asked him, he said, I have no account in United States standing in my name. That's very specific, That's very specific language. So I am not saying that he has any account in which he has any interest or a company or so, but I found it very noteworthy that he chose his words. I have no account in United States standing in my name. I don't know if that really clears up the issue.
How he deflected might actually be like our next level, because he didn't just deflect by attacking the messenger. And again, you can't have a debate where I'm attacking the messenger. Hey, everything you said is wrong because your hairstyle. Like, that's not debating the issue. So he's attacking the messenger. But he's not attacking the messenger based on how the messenger framed the question, how the reporter is his perspective or his opinion on the issue at hand. He's attacking the messenger based on a different issue over a decade ago, how that was framed. So the relevance of it, because I do not like what you did 10 years ago, I still totem feelings.
Well, this is why it is pure...
You believe that? You only use that as an excuse.
This is why
you really have to believe that.
But he definitely had it on his chest.
He used it. He wasn't up there. He used it.
This is why it is pure pettiness on the part of the Prime Minister. Pure pettiness. He's holding on to grudges. He probably has a list in his little book or little diary that he keeps on him all the time. With respect to that, you have to also look at the fact that Darren Baho, who is the Newsday journalist, posing the question, the communications team on the part of the Prime Minister took away the mic and said you cannot ask any more questions. So I'm now wondering if Mr. Baho will actually be allowed at any more press conferences held by the office of the Prime Minister. Adding to that, in relation to this whole thing, one, Mr. Baho was not allowed to actually ask his question. Before he could even repeat his question that he sent to the Prime Minister beforehand, he was not allowed to. And the Prime Minister used threatening language. I am warning you not to go there. I'm warning you, do not go there. Don't ask your question.
What was he warning for?
Exactly, don't ask your question. So the mere fact is the Prime Minister knew what the question was, so the Prime Minister, he actually came prepared to respond to something.
Thank
Bear
you.
that
That's
in mind.
Exactly my point.
He
was not really angry. What he was doing is using deflection and his persona, and he has a playbook of about 10 grievances, and he pulled out that one for him. What Baho will be dealing with? I don't want to answer the question. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get real angry over something and mash up that whole question. But he didn't want to answer the question. That is all, and I'm telling you, he did not do it because he was angry. He did it. He did it deliberately.
Yes.
He did it with an intent to deflect and to use intimidatory language to shut down the question.
So it's ironic that he says the media is being malicious when he, in fact, is doing exactly what he is chastising.
And I think, again, it blows my mind that politicians do not understand the benefits of transparency. Because when you foster transparency and accountability, guess what? People will believe what you say. And then when you say, trust me at my word, take me at my word, then we'll take you at your word. But
That
when
is
you
true.
hide from things, and even the argument he says, you pointed out, I'm advising you. For what? You're not his lawyer. You're not the presiding officer. This is not Parliament. You're not the Speaker of the House. What rule is he breaking by asking you the question?
Maybe the Attorney
What
General.
law is he breaking?
Maybe the Attorney General told the Prime Minister to say I am not advising you. I don't know where the Prime Minister got that level of intelligence from. But at the end of the day, what he's done is digging himself further into a hole as it relates to the Attorney General's matter. And and this is the level of respect.
And he's
the Prime
fooling
Minister.
no one.
Exactly.
That's the thing.
But Karen,
no one.
if we
no one
keep
is
saying that
fooling.
this Prime Minister is digging himself into a hole, soon he'll be at the center of the earth. Soon he'll be very much to the center of the earth. But, ladies and gentlemen, this is your state of leadership.
I just have an anecdote to give. I got a message today. Apparently, there's a primary school prize giving where parents are not allowed to attend because the Prime Minister will be attendance, much to the frustration of parents who actually want to, go watch their kids get a prize. So it's just one of those other things, those disconnects that I don't understand. Yeah, just one of those things where, like, what is your purpose now for intruding into these private citizens' lives? Is it a photo opportunity? I don't get it. If you understand that your image needs work, maybe you could start off by, I don't know, being transparent.
No,
I mean, just remember, the opposition is waiting in the wings. Yes, we're not talking about this stuff with regards to them because they're not in the hot seat. The government is in the hot seat.
Well, we have to break for news, but I think, honestly, it's fine that the Prime Minister is going to a primary school to do a prize-giving ceremony. I think there's nothing wrong with that. But not at the expense of parents. That is where the issue lies. But anyway, folks.
I find that hard to believe. Yeah. I think I should check that story.
We break for news on the hour, and when we return, we open up the phone lines this morning. Stay tuned to Talking Point.
Seven is out, all day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
The continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
It may seem like the hardest thing to do right now, but we all need each other to wear a mask, wash our hands, watch our physical distance, and stay at home. We need you safe. Together we can make the difference. Together we can curb the spread of COVID-19. So let's be responsible in our actions. The Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society. Mission-based, people-focused, community-driven.
Welcome back to Talking Point here on WESN, the content capsule. Well, the phone lines are open this morning where you can have your voices heard. Your opinions are very much valued on this program. We ask that you be very respectful of time, of other people's opinions, and please, I am kindly asking and pleading, very respectful in terms of the language that you use on this program. Mr. Sean Michael Small, two parts to the question. Give them the question of the day once more.
Well, the first part, of course, is quite simple. Is parliamentary debate meaningless? Everything is a simple majority. Opposition just opposes everything. What's the point of parliamentary debate? And I believe the second question was...
In relation to the opposition, do you believe that the government does not have any other choice but to pass legislation via a simple majority? So those are the questions that we're posing. However, we know that there were many other things that we spoke about this morning, and if you'd like to contribute on those topics, we are more than willing to hear from you as well. Apart from that, anything else, we're always open to.
I just want to preempt any commentary from any of our callers. The reason why we might seem to be a bit hard on the Prime Minister for those who are supporting him, well, at the end of the day, he is the Prime Minister. We hold him to a higher standard than anybody else because for all intents and purposes, it's not the president of TNT that's the big cheese, it's the Prime Minister. He's the guy that's in charge. He's the guy that more or less runs the executive, that runs government, and we have to look to him, technically, if we want government to be part of any solutions, to be the person overall in charge, to try to solve our problems, to try to deal with our current crisis with standard of living. It's a topic that we were potentially going to touch on, but he has to be part of the solution. So the standards that we expect from him will be higher than even the opposition leader, because she doesn't have to put her neck on the line or put herself out there in any sort of meaningful way. She just has to oppose. And I get that. And that's why it will never be equal with regards to the criticism.
Now, in relation to that, I go back to a point that I made on Monday, and I'm raising it once more, though I may seem repetitive. I take issue with the fact that the Prime Minister was away for 3 weeks. Now, I completely understand that he, is a human being. And being Prime Minister, he also has to look after his health. Looking after his health is also, in a way, serving the nation because he's able to effectively carry out his duties better. However, after 3 weeks, with all the controversy that is happening in Trinidad, with the current state of affairs and what people are facing day to day, to then hold one press conference, and then this is what you come with at the press conference. This is what you publicize. To me, though I pleaded and begged to hear from the Prime Minister before he left for Suriname, I'm wondering if I regret that simply because it would have been more fruitful if he had not said anything at all. It would have allowed for more intelligence and intelligent-based debates and conversations to transpire, rather than us, this is not wasting time, but unfortunately having to debate the Prime Minister's attitude and stance once more. And it's unfortunate that that transpired and then he left for Suriname. And it's going to be a couple more days, at least a week before we hear from him once more. And I do feel sorry for any journalist that is going to be present. You never know, it might be your last press conference with the Prime Minister. So it's unfortunate, but that, as I said before we broke the news on the hour, this is your state of leadership. This is your state of leadership. It goes back to what Judy Riemann was stating, a culture of silence. It is very difficult to get a government minister on any program across any station that is not state media. We've been privileged to have had with us the Minister of Public Utilities at times, as well as the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs. Beyond that, it is extremely difficult to even get in contact with them. So we have to bear that in mind. Adding to that, this culture of silence, where state media, unfortunately, you may view their morning programs, and by all means, it is informative at times and educational and even entertaining. It does not get down to the hard questions, and it does not put forward accountability on any sort of level. All it does is act as public relations for the government, and that is unfortunate. I would love to welcome the Minister of Finance the Minister of National Security, the Minister of Education, the Minister of Local Government loves to talk. He loves himself, he loves to talk. But he has a current public relations campaign, which I say is working in his favor right now, happening. So he might be very busy. I'd even like to get the Attorney General on the program. It's just difficult because of that culture of silence. So let me remain silent for a couple of minutes now and give you, the caller, the opportunity to speak, because we have with us a caller on the line from Diego Martin. Good morning. We do not have with us the caller on the line from Diego Martin. We seemed to have lost him. So we have a caller on the line with us from East Port of Spain. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, caller.
Good morning, folks. This is your usual Tuesday contributor. So in relation to the Prime Minister's press conference on Saturday, I found it very appalling that the other journalists who were in the room did not stand up to the Prime Minister and the way that he would have treated their fellow journalists and their colleagues. And after so many weeks of not having the Prime Minister even address the media, that's what we would have gotten after so many weeks. To me, it's totally appalling, and we must not condone that particular culture.
Yes, very much so. And the voice we very much recognize as Kemuel. Kemuel, thank you for your call this morning. Have a good day.
I think that that's where the intimidation comes in, right? To what extent does he intimidate the target in the moment? I'm not entirely sure. But how nobody else is necessarily quick to kind of jump in and push back. And even the reporter himself didn't necessarily want to push back. He was trying to maintain professional...
Remember the microphone was taken away from the reporter.
Right, but he still had the microphone, and when we could have heard him, it wasn't as though he was quarreling back at the Prime Minister, who was basically, deriding him in the moment. So that, to me, is where the intimidation... That's where you see it. And this is one thing I want to caution people, because you see it in American politics, right? One side does something and their supporters say, yes, we could do it, it's fine. But then they don't realize the precedent is set for when the other party is now in the position, they could do it too. So for PNM supporters, you need to understand, all of these things that you might find to be not so bad because it's your party, if it was the other party, would you want these things to occur? Because eventually, the other party will have a chance. Then you will not like the precedent that you supported.
We have a caller on the line with us, but before we go to that caller, it really doesn't matter to me what party you support. That is your right, and
I'm just trying to point out where we shoot ourselves in the foot sometimes.
At the end of the day, I'm just asking you not to support blindly. That is all I'm asking you. We have a caller on the line with us from Faizabad. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Trinidad and Tobago. What I like is the political gamesmanship by Gary Griffith. Master plan. He knows he's going to be rejected by the Prime Minister, even though the Police Service Commission recommends him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's going to say, you see what I said? These people really don't want to have a handle on crime. So it will give him some political currency. He's really not interested in the job, He's interested in a political career, and it's a good political status. The other thing I want to touch on is the issue with the AV drilling and the state refusal to appeal the matter on the advice of the same state lawyers. However, they want to appeal the matter against Ish and Steve and Brian in the same vein where the Privy Council has ruled. So I'm a little bit confused with respect to that. The other one is that Malcolm Jones, he had a matter before the court, and as soon as the PNM came into power, it was thrown out. And this fella misused public funds to the greatest. He went to South Africa and bought an obsolete plant. They built the foundation to put down the plant. The foundation was shifting, and none of the flanges or anything could have lined up properly.
Yeah.
So
Caller.
that was a...
Sorry, we have other callers, but let me tell you straight up. You've raised 3 very intelligent points. And I applaud you for the way that you're thinking. And I'm just going to tell you, call in more on the program, because I certainly need more contributors like you. But thank you very much, sir, for your time and your opinion. We have a call on the line with us from Chaguanas. Good morning. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
And ladies. On
Morning,
the question
morning.
of Parliament becoming irrelevant, the reason for it is that it has been sabotaged by our governments for the longest while. Long ago, when you bring a bill to the Parliament to be debated, the bill was prepared in such a long time in advance. You could have gone to the warden office and buy a copy, read it, approach your member of Parliament or even the relevant agencies. Today, the bill in most time is presented at the time of the Parliament. So it is very difficult for anybody to respond when you see this matter at the last minute. And in certain instances, this is deliberate, as we saw with the property tax. When the official report said give central government property tax to local government, they did the opposite. And up to now, you cannot see where the justification, where it come from. I told you I found out. I told you your Karen was supposed to respond. She never responded. On the question, the last time I missed yesterday, I had to go on. Your police guest gave the impression that to put the annual administrative report on the website could disclose confidential information. That would be a strange annual administrative report. In preparing the administrative report, you're supposed to take that into account. And if you have confidential information in some report, you just refer to the report. And finally, I cannot understand, I don't know if you can enlighten me or your guest, as to what is the Prime Minister's problem with the Law Society and how they're handling this thing with Mr. Amor, unless you have any questions today.
No, sorry, caller, but thank you very much for your contribution.
Just want to show you this. Can I just show you this? I come every time prepared to discuss the property tax. So just want the caller to know it's a question of time. And once we have the time, I'm prepared to discuss it.
There's a part of me, Karen, that actually feels that we should string this out a little bit more and not talk about property tax for a little bit more. That's just the silly part of me. But time is a big problem.
In relation to...
We're not going to discuss it, but I just wanted to know that I'm quite prepared to discuss it, and I come always prepared with my booklet.
Now, we have a caller on the line with us, but just before, in relation to the Law Association, caller from Chaguanas, the Prime Minister will oppose, and oppose in the most unfortunate of manners, in a very, how do I put this, a raging bull-like manner, to anybody who may present anything that he deems as bad public relations to himself or his government. So that is the issues that he has. We have a caller on the line with us from Claxtonby. Good morning, caller. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning to
morning.
the panel. Hello, good morning to the panel.
Sorry, caller. Just what happened? The mic is open in our director's box. If they can just close that. Right, go ahead, caller.
Yes, good morning, Aggie. I don't know if the panel has ever seen the sitcom on television, Yes, Minister and Yes, Prime Minister.
Yes.
I would like to just put in this phrase and quote the minister at the time saying, never believe anything that is officially denied. I leave you guys with that.
Thank you for that one.
Caller, brilliant. By the way, for those who don't know, Yes, Minister.
I was gifted that, actually.
Old British sitcom. Go and watch it if you get the opportunity.
As a Minister of Finance, I was gifted copies of Yes, Mr. Minister, Mr. Minister. I think I was being given a hint. That the minister already is not the one with the power, it's the permanent secretary.
As I said, that old British sitcom from the 1970s and 80s, brilliant. Go and watch it if you ever get the opportunity. As much as it was made up, it very much speaks to...
It was actually very, very realistic, I can tell you, having been there. It was very realistic.
But ladies and gentlemen, the issues that we are facing here in Trinidad and Tobago, especially in terms of our politics, my co-host pointed it out this morning, that the politics of the first world is not different to the politics of the third world. But countering your argument, I would say that the politicians are very much different, and the caliber of the politicians. Put it this way, as much as Boris Johnson is under fire this morning, and I don't know when he has never been under fire, but it's Boris Johnson. His response to that journalist at the press conference would have been so much different, because he has this way of not only making a fool of himself, but making a fool of you when you're not aware of it. And though he's very good at deflecting, it's so much better and so much more
subtlety.
Yes, more convincing than just having a barking dog attacking you all the time.
Oh boy!
We have a question on a caller on the line with us. Good morning, caller.
Good morning to Mr. Sheriff Nunez, Mr. Sheriff, and to you fine gentlemen.
Good morning, sir.
I just want to agree with Mr. Nunez, the Sheriff, that what he said concerning Prime Minister. I wouldn't say it because he is still my Prime Minister and Prime Minister of all of us, and we have to respect that. But she is the one, I hope she doesn't mind hiding behind her, because she is the one with the legal mind. I don't have that sort of background. But I agree with her, and I think she always, as normal, always make pertinent points and excellent commentary. I just want to leave a different kind of moment with you this morning. I had a friend who used to be calling Minister all the time for information, and he's getting the runaround. So my friend asked him one day, he said, "But sir, how could you sleep the night? There's something pertinent I asked you to get information for." The minister told him, "Well, you see, I don't sleep in the night when I sleep day." So.
Wow.
So thank you and for taking my call, and good morning.
Thank you very much, sir. Have a good day. I think the caller raised a point of which I agree with, and which probably I will use as part of my argument. The reason why we have such impassioned conversations, and the reason why we may seem very much fueled up at times in terms of the disappointment that we feel, is because at the end of the day, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley, regardless of what color you may wear, is still the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago and our Prime Minister.
Yep.
I've always referred to him as our Prime Minister. And I get very, very stressed, and it's very difficult when I see our Prime Minister acting in the manner in which he's acting and speaking the way that he is speaking. Because at the end of it all, if this individual, who was democratically elected, was to bring something different, be a Prime Minister for the people, not just a Prime Minister by the people, but a Prime Minister for the people, I think our conversations will be a lot different and our criticisms will be a lot less.
I think with regards, to go back to transparency, because one of the callers brought up the court matters, AV drilling, the Piarco case, etc., Malcolm Jones. Notice that if you really think about it, if the result you could more or less predict based on politics, then to what extent really, what I don't understand is it seems as though they're not even trying to hide it. They're not even trying to give us even near. More importantly, when they have situations like this, isn't there somebody in the hierarchy of your political organization that's going to say, that's too obvious? The favoritism, the favors is too obvious. We cannot do this because there's no way the public is not going to have questions, and there's no way that the opposition is not going to push what it is that we are obviously doing. And that, to me, you see, you're worried about how he quarreled with the reporter, and Karen is worried about how he's bullying and intimidating. I am worried about the fact that our political class is just so willing to throw away the obvious, or to ignore the obvious basic things of let's not appear to be corrupt. Let's at least try. And I'm not saying that they are corrupt. It's not evidence. But the appearance of how these cases are just more or less being resolved by the party lines of the government of the day, it leaves a very sour taste in my mouth. Not just that it happened, but that they're not even trying to give us a good show. They don't even have a good argument behind it to say, hey, this is why we're justifying these decisions.
The Prime Minister is a statesman. And he should act as he is a statesman. He should act as a statesman. And I do not believe that the Prime Minister will go to another nation, for example, he's in Suriname right now, and sit at any press conference and actually speak in the manner and act in the manner which he's doing. I don't think the Prime Minister would do that. And therefore I question, why is it that he feels as though it is okay and he is actually very much justified by doing that here to his own people? We have a caller on the line with us from Marval. Good morning, caller.
Hi, morning, fellas. Morning, Karen.
Good morning, sir.
Just a quick assumption. Why is it that the world is now becoming normal for its leaders and people in power to have no impulse control? What Gary Griffith responds to nearly everything. The Prime Minister, Donald Trump, impulse, me and you could have impulse, no control.
Yes.
We are not leaders. But leaders have a problem now in this world with impulse control. They just say what the hell they feel to say at that time because they want to be wrong, and you can't argue with them. Anytime you argue with them, you're wrong. Goodbye.
Thank you very much, caller.
Can I just say something in response to that very quickly?
Yeah.
I think Trump paid the price for that, which is why we have Biden there. And in so far as Boris Johnson is concerned, a lot of the criticism also is in the way in which he handles matters, in a very kind of cavalier, disruptive, boyish, and poor implementation. That was all of those things came up. So it is. I think that you're seeing a revision of that approach, and I think some of the areas in which the Republicans had won previously have been taken over by the Democrats. So I think it's just a matter of how the world turns and how the pendulum swings. So I hope it's swinging back.
Well, from Camille, there have been more resignations in Boris Johnson's administration. Three secretaries tendered their resignations in the last few minutes.
Exactly.
One thing, though, with regards to the caller's point, I think the issue is authoritarianism. And what happens is, before we would see authoritarianism, obviously in dictatorships, and then we saw it in communist countries where it's a one-party state. There's no accountability. And now in democratic countries, in Western democratic countries, we're seeing accountability becoming less and less, not just in TNT, but, in the UK, in Canada, in North America. And part of it in all of these countries, in Europe, North America, Trinidad and Tobago, the shades are different because the shades of colors are different. But issues like race, where all of a sudden, elections and politics are divided along racial lines. And one side tells the other side, hey, that's the problem because they don't like your kind. And they divide us in that manner. Well, we're not going to care about little things like lack of accountability and authoritarianism because all of a sudden we're drawing battle lines. And the other side is the enemy, and I could never agree with them. So I will tolerate all the abuse you send my way because I will ride with you till I die.
Well, I think that's where we have to conclude the conversation now.
And maybe America.
Two things very, very quickly. In the UK, Boris Johnson, since yesterday afternoon, has had 21 ministerial and aides tendering their resignations.
Exactly. And they're not tolerating it.
Is it only a matter of time before he resigns? Why are we talking about this? Because at the end of it all, it's an example of what can transpire.
Okay, the cynic could say this. They're jumping ship because they don't want to be tainted with his mess. But in TNT, I'm saying, Karen, that's the cynical view. But in TNT, we don't even have that. And we don't even have that.
Finally,
let me just say that Boris Johnson never thought what's happening to him would happen to him. Let me just say. And the tide is turning.
Correct, yes.
And finally, the tide is turning. The people are no longer prepared to put up with that behavior. And that is what's happening. So maybe it will filter down to Trinidad. But the tide has turned against Boris Johnson.
Finally, ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude my conversation, because we're out of time, very much so to the call of Ramarval, I think what it has become is that people are so now concentrated, as I've mentioned before, on trying to survive today in order to live for tomorrow. It's no longer about living today for tomorrow. It's surviving today for tomorrow. That it's taking on politicians has become something that is secondary now to providing meals, paying my bills, and seeing that I am able to actually see today, fall asleep, and wake up tomorrow morning. I think that is what it is. And their lives will only improve if they were to move that from secondary to primary. And that is what we're about. But anyway, Ms. Karen Nunes-Teixeira, thank you very much here on the program once more for your contribution and for educating us on many things. We appreciate your opinions and thoughts.
Thank you, and it was wonderful being with you all as usual, Sean, and of course Keaton, and your listening and viewership. Thanks for having me again, and looking forward to our next conversation.
Certainly, and Mr. Sean Michael Small, well, a lot is taking place in the UK. We'll be monitoring it over the course of the day and into tomorrow morning's program, but it certainly is an example of what is taking place now in terms of ministers' dissatisfaction.
If only we will learn, not just the things that we want to learn, but take the bitter pills too from the examples of other nations.
Ironic how I always end this show, but nevertheless it's a message of positivity and a message of today is a good day to have a good day. Trinidad and Tobago, at the end of it all, we're doing our very best. Hopefully we'll survive today and see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.